When I started dating Eduardo, everything was nice, everything was beautiful. At the time I thought I was in love with him, he was the only man for me, and everything was nice until I get pregnant. And when I get pregnant, I remember that he started abusing me and abusing me more and more. Every day it was more. I told myself, well, I'm here and I have to protect my kids, I have to do it now. So I went to get that restraining order and I feel more safe.
Many victims of domestic violence, like Sophia, find that a domestic violence restraining order is a very helpful tool in their efforts to keep themselves and their family safe from further abuse. A domestic violence restraining order is a court order requiring an abuser to behave in a certain way, like staying 100 yards away from a victim or not contacting the victim.
In the restraining order, I just asked for him to stay away from me and to not be close, not even from my kids' school.
If the abuser does not follow the order, he or she can be arrested. You can get a restraining order against someone who has attempted to or actually physically hurt you, someone who has sexually assaulted you or made you afraid, for example, by threatening you. Or it could be someone who has harassed you or stalked you or destroyed your property. The eligible relationships for domestic violence restraining orders are a current or former spouse, someone you live with, a fiancé or dating partner, the parent of your child, or other members of your family related closely enough by blood or marriage. You don't have to tell the abuser ahead of time that you're going to apply for a restraining order, and you can ask that the court keep your address and phone number confidential if you're hiding from the abuser. Both men and women can get domestic violence restraining orders. LGBTQ relationships also qualify, and teens can get them, even against other teens. If you've been arrested before or have a criminal record, you can still get a domestic violence restraining order, even if the abuser has gotten a restraining order against you.
When I went to court by myself, I was a little bit afraid because I was thinking, well, maybe they're gonna ask me for an ID. And at that time, I didn't have any ID because I was fixing my papers.
You do not have to be a citizen to apply for a restraining order. You should know that if you're undocumented and a victim of domestic violence, there may be special immigration options for you. You should contact a legal assistance provider for more information. Domestic violence restraining orders are helpful to many, many people, but they're not for everyone. When considering whether one is right for you, think about whether you think the abuser will obey the order and whether or not it might make them more violent, as well as whether you have other options for keeping you safe. If you're unsure whether a restraining order is right for you, you should call a domestic violence hotline and talk to someone about your options. There are various things you can ask for in a domestic violence restraining order. The judge will decide to grant some and not others, or potentially all of what you ask for. You can ask that the abuser stay away from you and places you go frequently, like your job or your children's school, not contact you, move out of your home, not harass or abuse you, provide you exclusive use of shared property, like a car, participate in counseling for abusers, pay important bills like your rent, or pay for damage to your property, medical bills from the abuse, or other related costs. You can also list others who need to have these protections, such as your children or your pets. You can apply for a restraining order at any superior court in Los Angeles County, regardless of where you live in the county. But not all of the courthouses have clinics to help you with your paperwork. Here is a list of the Los Angeles County courthouse clinics, along with their room numbers and the days and times when they're open. This list may be subject to change. When you go to the courthouse to apply for your restraining order, it's helpful to have any evidence of the abuse, like harassing emails or text messages or voicemails, or pictures of the destroyed property or bruises. But many people don't have any evidence, and that's okay too. It's also important to have the information about the person you need protection from, as well as the people you're trying to protect. Things like addresses, dates of birth and names, phone numbers.
When I went to court, he asked me, do you have any police report? Yes, I do, I told him.
You should also bring with you any information you have on the abuser's criminal record or court documents from cases involving you, your children, or the abuser, like custody hearings or child support hearings. If you like, you can bring a supportive friend or family member with you to the courthouse. But it's best not to bring your children. Sometimes there's childcare available, but not always, and it's really best that they not hear some of the things that you'll need to discuss. When you arrive at the courthouse clinic, you'll have an interview with an advocate who will help you to complete your paperwork to get a restraining order. This might be done on a computer or it might be on paper forms. This interview can take quite a while, so it's best to arrive when the clinic first opens for the day. You'll need to give the advocate a lot of information about what you're going to ask the court for and about the history of abuse in your relationship. So it's best to think about these things before arriving at the clinic.
At that point, I didn't speak any English, so they bring me in another person who speaks Spanish, and he helped me a lot with all the papers. Everybody was really nice with me.
Most clinics have staff fluent in Spanish and potentially other languages, and if they don't have someone who speaks your language, they can usually arrange for an interpreter over the phone. Domestic violence restraining orders are designed for people who are in imminent danger of harm by their abuser. This is usually shown by telling about a recent incident of violence or escalating threats of harm.
He asked me, "Oh, you have to give me a brief story about what happened. Why do you think that we have to put the restraining order on him?" And then I started telling me, "Well, he hit me, but you have to tell me a story with the day and time because we have to put it in court. It's not hard, but you have to do it. And when was the last time that he hit me, what time, where it was." When he finished with my story and everything, he gave me the package of paper to take it to the clerk's window, and from then I went in front of the judge.
Once you arrive at the courtroom, you'll give your paperwork to the bailiff, who will take it from there, and you'll just sit and wait quietly. Often a judge will just read your paperwork and decide which parts of the order to grant without talking to you. In that case, the clerk will likely come over and explain to you which parts of the restraining order have been granted. It's possible there won't be an interpreter available, but you can ask for one if you need one.
After the judge signed the papers for me, they sent me to the clerk window and to get my copy of my restraining order, and that's it.
If the judge grants your restraining order, a copy of the restraining order now needs to be served on your abuser. This just means that it's given to the abuser in person along with some other forms that the clinic will give you. This can be done by anyone who's 18 years or older and not a party to the case, so not you or one of the protected persons in the restraining order.
They asked me, do you have somebody to take those papers from you to serve him? And no, I don't have any family and I'm afraid of him.
If you don't have a friend or family member who can serve the abuser, you can go to the sheriff's office in the courthouse and ask that the sheriff do the service. Unfortunately, sometimes abusers can avoid the sheriff because the sheriff doesn't necessarily know what the abuser looks like or where to find him or her, so sometimes it's better to use a friend or family member. This person needs to give the papers to your abuser a certain number of days prior to your final restraining order hearing. Your papers will say how many days, but usually it's about 5. Once the papers are given to the abuser, this person will fill out the form saying when and where they gave the papers, and you'll take this form to the court and file it with the clerk. It's very important that you take this form, called a proof of service, to the courthouse and file it with the clerk. This way there's proof that the abuser has been told about the restraining order so that he or she can be arrested if the restraining order is violated.
As soon as I get the restraining order, I took the copy to my school, with my daughter's school, so Eduardo cannot pick up my daughter, and also to the baby city, so my baby can be protected, and Eduardo couldn't pick up my baby either.
When you get your domestic violence restraining order, the paperwork will tell you to come back to court in 21 days. There'll be an exact time and courtroom, and this is for your final domestic violence restraining order hearing. Before going to the hearing, practice what it is that you want to say to the judge about what you're asking for and what abuse took place in your relationship. You should dress nicely and professionally when you come to court, but you don't need to buy a suit or new clothes. Just don't wear anything too revealing or too casual. No shorts, no hats. Don't be late for your hearing or else the court may close your case. Allow yourself extra time to wait in the security line at the entrance to the courthouse. And clear your schedule because you may have to wait for quite a while before your case is called. When you get to the courthouse, you should bring your paperwork to the assigned courtroom, tell the bailiff that you're there, and wait for the judge to call your case for a hearing.
Case number 7, Green v. Kane.
An interpreter will be provided for you if you requested one.
All right, let's have you both face the clerk and take the oath.
Do each of you solemnly state that the testimony you're about to give in the case pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
The judge will ask you about the abuse that you've suffered and what you're asking for in the restraining order.
Ms. Green, your declaration states that Mr. Kane has abused you physically and emotionally. You claim the last incident of violence was on June the 15th. Can you tell us what happened on that night?
The most important thing is just to remain calm and be honest with the judge, consistent with what you said in your papers.
Well, I was out with a friend getting a drink, and when I came home, he was furious, and he accused me of cheating on him. And he called me a slut and a whore, and he hit me across the face.
Not accurate, Your Honor. Not accurate.
Hold on, you'll get your chance to speak.
If the abuser is there, he or she might try to contradict you or say that you're lying. Don't worry about this, the judge hears this all the time. Just calmly tell the judge what the truth is and point out if anything that the other party says is incorrect.
Go ahead, please.
I told him I was going to call the police. I went for my phone. He took my phone and threw it against the wall, and he pushed me down, and he said that he would take my kids and that I would never see them again. And so I ran to my kids' room, and I hid with them, and I didn't call the police.
Your Honor, she didn't call the police because I didn't touch her. I didn't do anything to her.
All right, Mr. Kane, what is it that happened that night?
Your Honor, she came home late. She came home drunk, left me alone to cook dinner for the kids. And when I asked her where she was, I got angry when I found out she was out with somebody that she had cheated on me with before. Okay, and I may have insulted her, but I did not lay a hand on her.
Okay, you're contesting the restraining order.
If you have evidence of the abuse, like pictures or police reports for anything that happened before you initially got the restraining order or since then, you can bring these to the hearing. Just give a copy to the abuser if the abuser is at the hearing and tell the judge about the evidence you have. You can also bring people with you to testify on your behalf. This would be someone who heard or saw the abuser hurt you. But remember, children cannot testify.
Ms. Green, I see from your declaration that you're alleging that there have been past incidents of violence in addition to this one?
Yes, and I've included photographs of my bruises with the petition.
The judge will then decide whether to grant the restraining order for additional time or not. Often the restraining order is granted for another 3 to 5 years, but it could be as little as a few months.
I'm granting the restraining order for 3 years. You may not abuse or harass the petitioner. You're not to contact her except to discuss the children's visitation. You're to stay 100 yards away from her at all times except to exchange the children. You're not to have any guns or ammunition.
If you have children in common with the abuser, at the hearing the judge will talk to you in detail about what you want the visitation and custody arrangements to be. Think ahead of time about what kind of visitation schedule would work well for you and your children and have some specific times and options already in mind.
Now, I understand that the two of you have 2 children together who have been in petitioner's custody?
Your Honor, I've requested joint custody of my children because I want to spend more time with them.
Your Honor, I've been the primary caretaker of the children, staying home with them, doing everything for them. He has a drinking problem and he cannot care for the kids.
I'm going to keep legal and physical custody with the petitioner, but will increase visitation to every Saturday from 12 to 2.
The court also needs to order child support for the parent who has custody of the children. There's a specific formula in California for how much child support is granted, and you and the other party will need to file some paperwork regarding your income and expenses ahead of time.
And if neither of you have any further questions, you can get copies of the order from my clerk, and you can be seated in the gallery.
After the hearing, you'll again get paperwork to take down to the clerk's office. And again, you'll need to give copies to all of the people you gave it to before. The local police, your children's school, the babysitter. This time, you can give a copy to the abuser by mail if the abuser does not come to the hearing. Otherwise, he or she will just get a copy at the hearing. Many abusers will follow a domestic violence restraining order because they're afraid of being arrested or because they now know that you're serious about them leaving you alone. But some will not.
He broke the restraining order many times, but my job was to call the police all those times.
Keep track of each incident, including emails or text messages or when and where the abuser followed you or anything else that happens. It's important that you take steps to protect your safety in addition to getting a restraining order. You can change the locks on your home or move or enter a shelter. There are lots of options, and you should speak with a domestic violence counselor about what would be the right safety plan for you.
Now it's everything okay with me. I have 2 beautiful kids, and my life, I cannot complain. It's much better. And Eduardo is not bothering me at all.
We hope the information in this film has been helpful to you and your family as you strive for safety. Please remember that the information is specific to Los Angeles County and is subject to change. For further information, you can call 211 and ask for legal assistance, for example, regarding divorces, child custody, or child support, or immigration remedies, or ask for domestic violence shelters or counseling programs for you and your children. Best of luck and be safe.
If you're thinking about it and you might be scared, you should just do it because it's good for the kids and for yourself to be protected.